Gracie Jiu-Jitsu rocks. Welcome to the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Rocks podcast, a podcast dedicated to Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and all things Gracie, including self-defense, competition, anti-bullying, women's self-defense and empowerment, nutrition, and most especially, the people involved in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. This podcast is for the average Joe. It's for anyone who practices, trains, teaches, or just loves to talk about or hear about Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. We'll explore the lives of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu practitioners, how they got involved in the art, and what effect it's had on their lives. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Welcome to episode 22 of the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Rocks podcast. As always, I'm your host, Marty Josie, and thanks for listening. So this episode is going to be somewhat of a recap of 2014 and how it relates to the podcast. I have had quite a time doing the podcast. I started it at the end of March of this year, and I launched 6 episodes. And then did one, roughly 2 per month, give or take, about every 2 weeks, making this our 22nd episode, and this is late December. Happy holidays, by the way. So far, not including this episode, we've had 13,501 iTunes downloads of the show, so very, very happy about that. It actually has exceeded my expectations for sure. Don't know how many people have listened on the website because I don't have a way of tracking that. By the way, if anybody is really tech savvy and would like to help out with that, helping me figure out how to do stats from the website, or even converting this website over to more of a WordPress site. Right now it's done with Weebly. I would certainly be interested in talking to you about that if you have that knowledge and capacity. So started the podcast as a way of feeding my passion about Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, being able to talk about it, connect with people, interview great people, which I've certainly been able to do, again, beyond my expectations for this year, and bringing more of a connection throughout the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu community and brotherhood. So I do feel like I've been very successful in that this year and very happy with how it's gone. And I want to say thank you to all the listeners for their support with the show throughout the year. And keeping with that, I want to share some feedback I've gotten from some listeners. I did this also in episode 9, I believe it was, but I feel like it'd be fitting to do it again at the end of the year here. So this is from Cody Wood. He says, just started listening to your podcast yesterday due to the suggestion of Eric Holland. What you're doing for the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu community is amazing. Keep up the good work. So thank you, Cody. Brian Gulka writes, and I apologize if I butcher any of these names, guys. But Brian writes, I came across your podcast and really enjoyed it. I trained Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in Eugene, Oregon at McKenzie Martial Arts, the first Gracie CTC in Oregon. Also says he earned his blue belt and he's loving the Master Cycle curriculum. He further says, I think you would really enjoy speaking to Adam Roberts, who's the owner and the instructor there. He embodies the Gracie philosophy of keep it playful. The other instructor, Terry, is also outstanding. I jokingly say we're getting an advanced degree in jiu-jitsu and a minor degree in life philosophy. And he suggests that we interview his instructor, and again, then he says, keep up the great podcast. So great. I can certainly add him to the list, Brian, and thank you for your feedback. And next we have Gary Benjamin Strout, and Gary writes, I love your podcast. It's very clean and professionally done. I can't wait until the next episode. And he's from Overland Park, Kansas. So thank you, Gary, for that feedback. John Krogus in Winston-Salem, North Carolina writes, Marty, what an awesome job you're doing with this. I think it's wonderful what you're doing here. It's something that can really help the Gracie, quote-unquote, family who are all around the state to bond. Hopefully we'll meet one day soon. And again, that's John Krogus, so thank you, John. Doug Turcotte writes, great interview with Guido. I like how he described his jiu-jitsu journey, his work with the visually impaired, and his quest to help spread Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in Europe. Great Gracie Jiu-Jitsu ambassador. So thank you, Doug, for that feedback. Jared Lumphrey from Green Bay said that he loves the podcast and listens to every episode. He also suggested interviewing his instructor, Brady Bookman. So again, we can certainly add him to the list. And thank you so much, guys, for all the feedback and support we've had through this year. I also want to do a quick thank you to all the interviewees of this year, and I want to run through them now. So episode 1 was Bill Odom, owner and instructor of Norfolk Karate and Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Norfolk in Norfolk, Virginia. Episode 2, we had Ty Gay, who's the owner and head instructor of Redline Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in Edmond, Oklahoma. Also lead singer of Everybody Panic. Episode 3 was with Mazi Heydaddy of Chapel Hill Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, owner and head instructor there. Great interview. If you haven't heard it, please make sure you get to that one. Episode 4 was with Jim Pfeiffer, who's the owner and instructor at Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Williamston in Williamston, North Carolina. Episode 5 was with Victor Camacho Galou, and he is the director of instructor certification at the Gracie Academy. Episode 6 was with Jeff Howard, who's a great friend of mine, and he spoke about some of the legal aspects of martial arts, as well as shared his journey, and we talked about our one and only competition way back when. Episode 7 was with Chris Rattay, head instructor at Timmins Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in Timmins, Ontario, Canada. Episode 8 was with Master Hoyler Gracie, so excellent interview. Check it out if you haven't heard Master Hoyler. Episode 9 was with John Carter, who is the owner and head instructor of Carter's Academy of Self-Defense in South Carolina, and he talks about his journey as well as how Aikido and Gracie Jiu-Jitsu go hand in hand. Episode 10 was with Idris Rezovic of Rezovic Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in Chicago, Illinois. Check it out. Episode 11 was with Carlos Diaz, who is owner and head instructor of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Destin in Destin, Florida. Episode 12 was with Brian T. City Ortega, and this was kind of a recap of the Gracie Immersion Camp in Destin, Florida this past summer. Episode 13 was with Chet Skimahorn, owner and head instructor of LaGrange Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and Fort Wayne Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Episode 14 was with Guido Janinguez, and he is one of the instructors out at the Gracie Academy. Episode 15 was part 1 of the Henner Gracie interview, and episode 16 was part 2 of that interview, so check that out if you haven't had a chance. Episode 17 was with Guy Valente of the Valente Brothers Jiu-Jitsu in Miami, Florida, so definitely check that out as well. Episode 18 was with Eric Holland of East Coast Martial Arts and Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Annapolis, and episode 19 was with Nico DeHaan, who's a Gracie Baja black belt and does the show Living a Primal Lifestyle. Episode 20 was with Keith Owen, Pedro Sauer black belt, and episode 21 was with Ed O'Neill, actor extraordinaire and Gracie black belt from the Gracie Academy. So if you haven't heard all these episodes, I invite you to go back and listen to them. I had a blast doing them, and I want to thank everybody who allowed me to interview them and for helping make this show what I consider a huge success this year. I really hope everybody is enjoying the show. Again, as always, I welcome your feedback, your comments. It really jazzes me and keeps me going. Kind of thrive off those, so keep them coming. A quick bit of news. Kron Gracie just recently had his first MMA fight, and not surprisingly, won. He ended up winning in the first round, and again, no real surprise there, but congratulations to Kron and continued success in MMA if he continues to pursue that. Okay, to sum this section up, I'd like to go ahead and play an audio of a video segment on Gracie philosophy.
Focus in Jiu-Jitsu is I always survive. Jiu-Jitsu is designed to survive against a big opponent. Jiu-Jitsu is designed for us to survive against somebody on the street. Survival is the key of the game. And when you understand the survival aspect, you come to class and you let your opponent go a little bit one step farther. Just to see how much you can survive if the guy step up one notch. Maybe he step up another notch. If you keep playing, if the guy crosses line, I'm done. And you just tap. And you go back again and try to do an experience and try to play Jiu-Jitsu that way. That's the way how you can always improve your game, always. And that describes the idea that Grandmaster Helio had about, man, if I don't lose, if I know how to not to lose, I can win a fight. So I don't have to go ahead and beat my opponent. I can let him get beat. I can I can defend myself, make sure that nobody's gonna touch my jaw, nobody's gonna get my joints, my lung. I'm gonna survive against everything. Now he is the one who has to be committed to do something, instead of me trying to beat him.
And that was Master Pedro Sauer. And now one more from Henner Gracie.
Put it this way, let me start by saying Jiu-Jitsu principles haven't changed since day one. What made my grandfather effective against Fred Ebert or Vladek Zavisko, or what allowed him to survive for 13 minutes against Kimura is the same. What is that? Survival mindset, efficiency of energy, natural body movements. What is changing is now that sport jiu-jitsu has become such an emphasis for a lot of people, you have two guys who have no consideration for a street fight, no consideration for punch protection, who are grappling each other. And when there's no punching, there's millions of things that can happen based on gis and lapels and grab and twist and crazy different guards that are not street applicable, but they're very sport. So most of the ridiculous growth has been in the sportive realm because there's no limit in terms of keeping it real. You don't have to worry about keeping it real. Just grapple. And that's fine. And that's very fun, and there's a lot to learn there, and it's beautiful. But my concern is that if that sport growth continues and people don't remember that that is different than street, it's not the same. People learning sport are being confused in thinking that they're getting ready for a fight, but they're not. It's possible today in your sport, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world, that you get a purple belt or more and go out in a fight and get beat up. How? Sport Jiu-Jitsu, the distance of a sport Jiu-Jitsu match is different than the distance of a street fight. In sport Jiu-Jitsu, you can be in butterfly guard, grabbing some sleeves. If you do that in a street fight, you get knocked out. In a street fight, you have to close the distance, and you have to manage the distance more effectively between you and the bad guy, because in a street fight, the only thing that matters is distance management for punch protection. You see Royce in the original UFC, he's like this. Why was he doing this? Distance management. He was measuring stick. He wasn't trying to punch anybody. He was trying to say how far he is, so that he knew when it's time to clinch. And once he clinches and goes to the ground, what does he do? He stays so close. How long? As long as it takes. Just slay a snake. Before you know it, boom. But learning sport jiu-jitsu does not prepare you for that. It's totally different. That's my concern with the growth of the tree.
So do you think that at some point the sport of jiu-jitsu and competitive level will actually take over the core of jiu-jitsu that your grandfather?
No, it's not as long as I'm alive. As long as I'm alive, street self-defense jiu-jitsu will always exist. Because that's what that's what Gracie Academy is 100% dedicated to, is the preservation and perpetuation of the jiu-jitsu that can be used to beat bigger guys in real fights. Now, you know what's crazy? Is why did you show up to learn jiu-jitsu to begin with? When you first said, I want to learn that, what was it? What did you see? What did you see that made you want to learn though?
The smaller guy beats other.
You saw Hoist do his thing.
Right.
You saw a little Hoist go in there and beat the giant. Now what's crazy is that's what the whole world wants to learn. When they walk in those doors, they're not coming here to earn a point. They're not coming here to fight someone their same size.
Right.
The reason someone shows up, and this is not just for jiu-jitsu, this is for any martial art. The reason someone shows up to a martial arts school is for martial combat preparation. Of course, the fitness is good, the camaraderie is good, and the sport is fun. But those are byproducts. The reason someone shows up is so they don't get beat up. Because you know and I know that when you can't get beat up, you feel invincible. And when you feel invincible, you're a better brother, you're a better father, you're a better businessman, you're a better husband, you're a better family, you're better at everything that you do. Better in your job when you have confidence. But what does confidence come from? Not from a point. Confidence comes from knowing that if a giant walks by, you look at him and you don't think to yourself, oh no. You think to yourself, how interesting.
Okay, time for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. And today I'd like to talk a little bit about what I do to kind of recap the year for myself. Getting close to New Year's Eve. I'm not a big resolution kind of person. New Year's resolutions, if I want to make changes, I'll make them whenever during the year and put a plan into action and do it. But I do like to kind of recognize and record the year in my mind and on paper. So what I do every New Year's Eve, which helps me be grateful and present in my own life regarding New Year's Eve, or regarding the past year rather, is I have a kind of a framework that I came up with a number of years ago, which I use. And one of the things on it is just trips that I've taken. So I record all the trips I've taken for that year, where I went, and maybe a little blurb about each one, just to kind of as a cool record. And with all this stuff, it's kind of like if you don't record it, you kind of tend to lose it. It all gets jumbled up in your head, and the years fly by and they all seem to melt together. So it's great to do some things to really be aware and present and look into those years and have clarity about them. The second heading I have is called Peak Experiences and Successes of the Year. So under this heading, I'll just list the most peak experiences I've had throughout that year, things that stand out in my mind that I've really enjoyed about the year, that have really made life worth living and special. The next heading I write down is called Challenges. So what are the challenges I've had in this past year? What's been challenging for me? What have I been able to overcome? And then last one is things I'd like to do more of next year. So I kind of start my planning and just what would I like to do more of next year? What would I like to get out of next year? And it's good to start kind of giving that direction to your mind. And all this doesn't take very long at all, and it serves as kind of a record for me to look back and not only appreciate the year and all it had to offer and all that I experienced during that year, but also as a record of just kind of a historical account. 5 years down the road, I can look back and say, oh yeah, I went to these places during that year. Oh wow, I was going through those challenges, and these are the things that I did that I really loved that year. So it's just kind of a fun thing. I feel like it's a real productive way to end the year and look into starting the new year. So give that a try if you would like. I highly recommend it. Again, guys, thank you so much for being a part of this show and sharing your ideas, your thoughts, or just listening and telling others about the show. Please continue to help me spread the word. I really do appreciate it. Super happy with how it's gone this year, and I hope next year's even better, and I wish everybody out there continued happiness, success, and the best of everything the world has to offer. This is going to do it for this episode and this year. Take care, everybody, and until next time, I'll see you on the mat.